Hi, and welcome to yet another episode of Just Two Things. And this time I've got a really special person with me. He's Kaustav Majumdar, and he's a friend, he's a colleague, and somebody that I've come to know, in a really good way in the recent past. And I've been very lucky because of that. He's not just an educationist or education person, somebody who's like an adjunct faculty who's digital, but he's also been an angel investor. He's also been an entrepreneur himself and a consultant, so he wears many hats and he's got some perspectives on a lot of things which are very interesting. And I'm going to have him a lot of times on our show, but this time around I want to speak about just two things, as this show is called. What is just two things? It's just two things that get straight to the heart of the matter about a particular topic that the person I'm interviewing is excited about. And we'll just probe a little bit into that, get to the heart of the matter, and come out, and that's it, right? So, in this specific episode, what I'm trying to do is figure out what Kaustav has to say about the whole of AI meeting education, right? Those are the two things that are, making this confluence, and we're trying to figure out what this confluence is about. So the first question to you, Kaustav, and welcome. Before I give you the question, say a quick hi to all of us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here, Siddharth.
Right. So the first question to you is, does AI make education, and maybe even higher education, let's say, to give it some context, kind of irrelevant? Are we kind of missing the point here?
I mean, I guess this is how an opening batsman would be treated in a seaming track in Lords, right? The first delivery is going to test you. I think it's a great question, and I do not have a very clear, direct answer. The ideal way to deal with any opening delivery in Lords is to just let it go. I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to take a stab at it. Education as we see today, or as we have been seeing today over the years, over the last couple of centuries, it's really not gone through any paradigm shift. It has seen incremental changes over the years. And with the advent of AI as we see today, which has gone through remarkable changes, education of yesteryears meeting AI of today, I think we need to do something about it, or else if it's not going to become irrelevant, it possibly is going to become less relevant at some stage in the future.
Can you give an example of how you see it becoming very rapidly irrelevant, or are you already experiencing it?
I, for one, already experienced this. I think a lot of us are already seeing it. Some of us who choose to see it. Soon, all of us will have to see it. It's just that, some of us who work in the education world, you and I have had run-ins with some of our colleagues who would like to live in denial. Only a few months back, in one of India's best academic institutions, and I'm sure it's the same story with most others, when ChatGPT came out sort of in its full pomp and glory, there were massive conversations that how unethical ChatGPT is, and how terribly unethical our students are going to become, our learners are going to become tomorrow. And the outcome, I remember, of those conversations at that point in time was, we need to stop GPT from becoming more powerful. We need to tell our students, do not use GPT. I listened to those conversations. Of course, it was to me, in my mind, it was ridiculous, and I listened to the whole thing with incredulity. But then I was also remembering how the world had reacted when, I think, internet possibly first came in, but then, and then maybe when Google started taking shape, then when phones became everywhere, and then maybe when social media became. So these are all stages in our lives that you and I have had the privilege of witnessing in the last 30 years. These are all little pivotal points where the world changed a little bit. I think what we are now seeing with generative AI, it's going to be a paradigm shift. It's almost to me a culmination. So you cannot stop learners from using generative AI anymore. We need to figure out what to do with them now. So I think that was the huge penny drop moment for me earlier in the year. And in terms of direct impact in our classrooms, I think a large number of what some of the assignments that we tend to give to students perhaps were lost some part of the relevance or semi-relevant earlier, just with normal the way internet would crawl. But now I suppose they're putting in feeds in their GPT prompt when we are teaching. Right?
No, if I'm an intelligent, even half smart student, I'm going to be using ChatGPT to crack through all of my essays and assignments, right? But does the content in what we teach in class change because of AI coming in? And because up till now, what was happening was that we were living under the understanding that, okay, the thinking work is ours, the creative work is ours, and everything else can actually be pushed out. The mechanical dreary stuff can be pushed out to machines. But now education's thinking work bubble may itself be kind of bursting, isn't it? What do you think about this?
I'm going to say something which is going to land me in a little more trouble than I usually am in. I think a lot of educators possibly felt that the thinking work remains with the teachers, and the dreary, sort of industrious, dreary work will be the student's job. I'm not sure a lot of students were made to think a lot, especially with the way traditional education is becoming. It's like factories, right? Our colleges are like factories. I'm not sure they really tested. They were not being tested, say 3, 4, 5 years back. When you keep doing the same case studies over and over again, we can say that every time we do a case study, it feels different. I mean, I know a lot of teachers love saying that. I don't know why they say that. I mean, you're doing it for 20 years and you must have done it 1,000 times. You found it to be 1,000 different ways, that same case study. Why? It's just, that's fine. There is sense in doing things again and again. But from a student's point of view, I'm not sure they were really tested, because why would I test myself if I find acceptable responses available very easily for me? Why would I want to test myself? Why would I want to not use Google Maps and try and see if I can find the closest Starbucks to my house and wander around and sort of chance upon it? So I think from a testing point of view, it was not getting done. I think a lot of it was very mechanical for students to begin with. And then what has happened in recent times, it is still the case, right? So it's still, human beings are meant to be more creative, and the machine is supposed to do the coolie job for us, right? That's what is expected in many different ways. And in fact, if you look at all research from all over the world, including PwC's much vaulted the future of work, they keep talking about the future of work is going to be X, Y, Z, but then right at the top is your ability to think creatively. So the question now remains, now that the internet and the technology on the internet, which is commonly available to every one of us, is so sharp, so clever, it can do the machine job faster, quicker, right? Which essentially means that it can do the machine job maybe at times faster and quicker than what we can handle. And the whole deal is that if you break down, as an engineer, you would break down a large problem into smaller problems. If you quickly solve 2, 3 small problems, you will be able to identify what the upcoming next problem would be. I think the machine, what essentially it does, it quickly identifies, based on your prompts and your questions, it quickly identifies what your problems may be and can suggest what may happen, right? This is an early sign of intelligence, if you get my drift. So what we were the creative ones, they were the dumb ones. I'm using us and them. That's getting very sort of hazy right now. I think we need to be really creative now. We need to be really smart now. And the big job now is not the answer. The big job is what question are you asking, right? And I would like to circle back. I think you and I both hail from the industry, and both of us went to academia because we had questions in our minds, and we wanted more. And academia needs to sort of reinvent what it was set out to do, is ask better questions. I don't know whether that kind of answered.
No, it's lovely. So here, this provides me a beautiful segue to my second question. So if we have to really think about the questions rather than the answers, my question to you is, how can now we integrate AI? How can professors think of their work differently? How can students think of approaching maybe, say, an MBA style education differently, or even undergrad style education differently? What should be happening within the portals of education in an ideal world?
I obviously do not really know what we are heading into, for sure, but I can make some good guesses. But before that, Sal Khan of the Khan Academy, in one of his TED Talks, recently spoke of Khan Migo. If you have seen it, great. If you haven't, I invite you to take a look at it. One of the things that he mentioned in Khan Migo, and it was very interesting because he was involved with GPT's rise in many ways, and I appreciate that. I applaud the fact that these guys can go beyond small differences and integrate and assimilate and work with the best out there. And Mr. Khan spoke about how generative AI, large language models, will not just be a learning aid, it will also be a teaching aid. Now, what that essentially means is that for somebody like you, your favorite generative AI of tomorrow is going to help you plan what you're going to teach, how you're going to teach, and then keep track of what you're teaching, how you're teaching, more importantly, whether learning's happening or not. So in other words, evaluation, whether learning's happening or not, is the way we would check through evaluation, which is always a sort of a bane of existence of a lot of learners, for sure, and maybe some teachers as well. And that is going to change. I think you will have quizzes and MCQs and the usual questions and answers we've had in the past. You possibly will continue to have them, but the importance of those are going to minimize, it's going to reduce.
Well, I'm getting the sense over here that it's a little bit like an arms race, right? So the student is arming themselves with a lot of information coming from AI, and then the professor also has to kind of up their game in order for them to be able to contribute something meaningful to the student.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's a race of that nature. It's interesting that you put it like that, but it's a race in some sense. Jim Flynn, noted psychologist, in his seminal work, The Flynn Effect, had mentioned quite accurately, I would like to believe, that every generation is smarter than the earlier one, which need not be what professors choose to remember all the time. We like to believe that we are smarter than our learners. We possibly are. We have the wisdom of knowledge and being in the planet for a little longer. But those gaps are going very quickly, right?
I'll just type in, I'll just type in "be like Kaustav Majumdar" and answer me this question on ChatGPT, and in maybe a couple of years, I'll get an answer better than what you can give in real life.
Yeah. So the worry is that you can type in "be like Bill Gates" and get an answer.
Exactly.
You can write "be like Ratan Tata" and possibly get an answer. But the real worry is that you can actually say, what will my teacher Kaustav like, and get an answer. Now
That's true.
that changes dynamics quite a lot. Yes, the learner of tomorrow uh, is we know they are digital first, right? Digital natives, etc. Uh, they do not look at technology with suspicion. They're born with it, which essentially means they will embrace it as they are embracing much quicker than you and I will do, and possibly ridiculously quicker than some of our colleagues who choose not to see how the world is going. So I think what's going to happen, yeah, it is a race. In that race, we need to stop being afraid of technology. There are other reasons to be afraid, and that could be a
Sure.
separate line of conversation. Um, but as on date, we need to embrace this. We need to see that this technology is here. It's going to stay, and it's going to get better, right? And whether you use it or not, your learners are going to use it. If you use it, you will teach better, and they will learn better. If you don't use it, you management style education may or may not become irrelevant, but teachers who are not using it will become irrelevant.
So one final question, because you've gone so beautifully to the fundamental between the relationship between the student and the teacher, which is excellent. But if I have to now kind of pull you out of that and ask you what an educational institute should be doing in order to integrate AI, I mean, there are many things it could do. What's the top thing it should be looking at, or maybe one or two things?
Uh, Embrace change. We talk about it. We don't do anything about it. I think
So how can we embrace change in this
academic
specific context?
institutions are the slowest, according to me, to
Mm, mm,
change. They're scared because because we reap benefit from something which has been there for a while, and for good reason. And I'm not questioning that.
sure.
But this is a pivotal change. This is a paradigm shift, which essentially means that a lot of what we thought were constants, givens, are going to get pushed.
Mm,
Um, and I think it's going to impact not just yours and my direct world of teaching in colleges. It's going to impact schools, right? School kids are
mhm.
taking phones to their schools now. You can say they don't take the phones, and they will not. They will have their wristwatches,
Yeah.
and it's going to have Alexa or Siri inbuilt over there. You won't need a phone anymore. You'll be able to talk to this omnipresent, ubiquitous, being, and you will be able to crawl the internet and ask anything that you want. Now, this realization has to seep in that there is no stopping this. That's the first
Mm,
thing that academic institutions need to do, because I think leaders of academic institutions are not seeing it. Just mini segue. I have spoken to colleagues in various colleges across the country,
sure.
and I have asked them how many of you have actually used GPT. A disproportionately large number of them actually still are yet to use GPT, and that is scary. And when I say use,
Exactly.
though I tried it out once, no, as in properly put it to use, take it for a spin on a regular basis. I think academic institutions need to immediately set up, not, we love setting up committees, but a real committee, a committee which is empowered, a committee which is time bound, and not to try and do something which is going to be foolproof, but a committee that is going to come, um, explore, and maybe in a very short period of time take small steps. The first step being everybody who's is a teacher, they need to understand they've become facilitators even more so now, and they need to
Mm,
become comfortable with what language models are, and what generative AI can be, and how questions can be done. I think the student and the teacher needs to work together in this. I do not think it needs to be two islands trying to figure out, and then figure out what the bridge is going to be. That's dumb. I've actually benefited immensely by talking to some of my students. Notwithstanding, I have a computer science degree, but that degree is fairly irrelevant in terms of
mm,
modern day technologies. So I've actually gone to my students, and asked them how to go about it, and I have regular conversations with them. some of them come out with unbelievable stuff. Some of them come and told me, sir, you may want to take a look at this, and this may help you teach better. This should not bother me, right? This a feedback like this does not mean that I'm necessarily teaching poor. I think I should be grateful that somebody is coming with feedback of this nature. So I think A, understand that we need to do it. B, set up a team with qualified people who can do it. C, do not keep the student out of it. Make the student part of this. When we made learning management systems, say 10, 15, 20 years back, we never involved the student, really. We assumed what the student would be needing. We believe we know what they need. We do not. So I think we need to do it together, because your client over here is better equipped to deal with the technology that you are going to use.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think, Kaustav, it's time for us to end on this high note. This is brilliant stuff. This is something. So I've learned two things from you, Kaustav, and thank you so much for your participation. And we're going to have you next talk about all other things AI, or maybe even more than AI at some point in time. But two things that I've really learned from this is that instead of maybe looking at it as an arms race between the professor and student, maybe co-create stuff with the student is probably a better approach to take, especially since they're digital natives and they're going to always be 2 steps ahead of you, but you have the ability to teach and you have a role to play. And the second is, maybe teachers or professors need to understand that if a student can access the mind of a Barack Obama or a Bill Gates or whoever else, it is going to be really difficult for them to be the font of knowledge, maybe. And so therefore the facilitation role or the eating humble pie role, as I would say, is going to certainly be more and more, unless and until you have truly an original perspective. So you just have maybe a few parts to take over here. Have an original perspective that can beat the best in the world, so to be truly genuinely great, or be a great facilitator. Thank you so much on these two things. Wonderful to have you here, and all the best.